Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Tech Report podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Drake, joining you yet again, both visually and audibly. The visual part is streaming live right now, and also in a post-mortem that you can watch on, I guess, on YouTube at twitch.tv/The Tech Report. So we're now doing this. We have jumped off the cliff. We've bought into the concept. We've sold our soul to the live streaming video gods, and we're a good harvest this year. Every Thursday, every other Thursday is generally when we record, but just follow us on Twitter if you want to find out. If you're listening to this later and you're like, I missed it, I wanted to see it live with all the swearing and the nudity, then that's exactly what you need to do, is head over to twitch.tv/The Tech Report. It's amazing to me, folks, that when we started, by folks, I mean Scott Wasson, Jeff Gager, Cyril Kowalski, and myself, that when we first put this stream up, the feedback to me was bordering on insulting, because there were more than one person going, oh, you guys aren't that bad looking. And it's like, what did you have in mind? What did you think we were doing over here? Like,
four really gross nerds.
These guys aren't that bad. I'm a little surprised. I'm shocked. I'm dumbfounded. I mean, the superlatives towards the recognition that we are not, in fact, an ugly bunch. Hurtful, people. Hurtful.
I guess we sound like we're ugly. That's what I get out of it.
No, my mom's jonesing for your voice, Scott. And everyone's got the vocals are not our problem. They're just not. But clearly, there's a perception that we're all fedora wearing butt heads,
neck beards.
Neck beards.
Yeah.
And my beard stops. It stops right here, right? See, it doesn't go. There's no, see here? You see?
Yeah, same.
Now, I'm going to do I have an editing policy that those of you who, none of you will notice this except for me. I have this policy, which is that when I'm editing the podcast after the fact, if I encounter something that is referred to as a visual, like, oh, you see this in the stream, or take a look at this, I kill it in the final copy, because I don't want anyone listening to feel like they're missing out. I think that's just a disservice to those who've been on a long time. Anyway, this is the official podcast of the Tech Report at techreport.com. It's the -- place for news and reviews in the computer hardware world, brought to you from our bedrooms collectively, or most my bedroom. I did this thing where what you see to the right of me, everything that was a mess is now on that side. Like, everything behind me has been sort of cleared up, but I just like this, like, it looks like a bomb went off to just the left of my screen, to my right, my stage right. So we're really cleaned up and presented here on the podcast. But let's get into it. We do have both live viewer mail, as people who are watching the stream would love some questions answered, and we have some reader mail, which we've been remiss in covering the past few episodes. I apologize for that. I just think we don't like you, and so it's a burden. That's not true. That's not true at all. They emailed jdrake@techreport.com. That's how you get a hold of me. And the first question is from Philip. He says, now that we have seen the GM210 in the Tesla K80, when do you think we'll see it in a consumer? Will they initially fill demand for the K80 and then in about 6 months' time transition to the consumer market? Now, this is a mobile reference, of course, and I believe this would be either a Scott or a Jeff answer, but I'm going to start with Scott. My gut tells me that's a good place to go to for this. And Mr. Wasson, what's the answer to his question?
Actually, it's not mobile. I think you're thinking Tegra is mobile.
Oh, Tegra.
Tesla is like the GPU compute enterprise chip stuff, right?
Right.
And so NVIDIA comes out this week at the supercomputing conference and announces this new chip, GK210, that we'd never heard of. And they've got basically like a dual GPU card that they're selling them in. And you look at it, and it's basically like the older big Kepler GK110, but they made a few changes, increasing local storage, register file size, cache / local shared memory size, and otherwise it's really similar to the older Kepler. And I'm not certain, Jordan, but my sense is that we may not see this in a consumer card, because even the existing GK110 that's in like the GTX 780 Ti and all that is not going to perform that differently graphics-wise. Maybe even would perform better than this, because I think it has higher shader count. Now, two of them on one card is kind of nice, and they could do that, but that's not really a chip issue, it's an implementation issue. And realize they have the Maxwell GM204 and the GTX 980 already out, and it outperforms or performs just as well as the GK 110 based cards out there. So I think that probably for the consumer market, that Maxwell based solutions will be the thing going forward, and we might see Maxwell double up, or we might see some other surprises. But I don't think we're probably going to see a GK210 in a consumer product. This is a bit of a split from the past, where they did the big chip in the enterprise, and then they'd also bring it into the consumer market. But just realize the changes they made to this chip probably aren't better for real-time graphics and gaming. And so there's probably no real attraction there. The question is just, how will NVIDIA take things to the next level for gamers? And I don't think we know the answer to that in specifics yet. But that's probably coming in the next few months.
Excellent. I should note that I left out part of Philip's question or his email. He said, "Hi, Jordan. I hope you're okay. We've missed you at the last few podcasts."
I don't see that in the text here.
No, I can send you. It's in the email.
Oh, okay.
It's just no.
No, seriously. Last time it was brutal without you, man. The energy you bring, the whatever it is. Oh.
Anyway, all right. So
the chimp picture, yeah.
The chimp picture. I love the chimp picture. That's great. It's racist, but it's great. I don't know how it's racist. I'm just saying that. Okay. This next question here is from Peter. He says, "Hey, TR team, and Mr. No Barbecue for Vancouver, aka Vancouver, although Vancouver would be cool. And Mr. Mr. No BBQ for Vancouver, aka Jeff Gager." I think that's a slight at you, Jeff, for not having a TR barbecue in Vancouver, which, by the way, should just as well apply to Cyril, because he's just as guilty. So I don't know why you're singling Jeff out, but it's not cool. All right. "I enjoyed reading your TR August peripheral staff picks article, but I noticed that the cheapest monitor you picked was barely sub 400. Any chance we could see some staff picks in the future that, or a similar article?" Oh, that doesn't make any sense. "For those of us who can't drop $400 plus tax and likely shipping on a monitor." Now, we talked, I think, in the last episode, wasn't one I wasn't on, about this peripheral staff picks. So this is a follow-up question to that. Guys, the question is, do you think our readers are made out of money? And if so, well, no, they're not, clearly. So what's the deal? What would you suggest below 400? Something that's a little more budget friendly.
That's the thing, is we don't spend a lot of time thinking about monitors that are cheap. There's kind of a commodity thing that happens when you get to like 1080p TN panel monitors, and that's a lot of those are well below $400.
Right.
At just under 400 though are like the 27-inch IPS panels out there, like the Korean one that we looked at. There's one that is an Aria brand that they sell at Micro Center that's a 27-inch IPS that's, I think, 380 or something, and like it's 2560 by 1440 IPS with like a year warranty and real support. I would generally recommend that if you're going to spend around that amount of money. If you go like 200, 250, then you kind of get into that commodity range where I don't have any specific guidance for you. But
yeah, what I would recommend there is just go to Newegg, look for 6-bit IPS displays. There's a lot. Anything that says IPS that's below $200 is probably going to be 6-bit, and just sort by the number of user reviews, and anything with 50 really good reviews is probably going to be a decent purchase at $150, $200, something like that.
Yeah, specific models are hard because when you get into that commodity territory, there are like a zillion of them, and they change a lot, and so it's hard to track. It's not something where we can go like review one and then it stays around for a while and we can keep recommending it. Sometimes it's kind of chaos in the low end of the market. But if you've got nearly $400, then you can get a great display. With a 27-inch IPS at 2560 by 1440. So, look at the Aria or look at one of the other brands. And you can always check into the forums or things like that for more specifics.
All right. And then we have a listener question. There's more than one here. What do we got? The first one here from Edith. Let's take a second to process that. We have a viewer/listener name, Edith. Excellent. Okay. From what I've read in your system guide, I'll be building my computer around the Pentium Anniversary Edition processor. In my area, there's a Micro Center that has an amazing deal. The deal contains the MSI PC-mate motherboard and the Pentium Anniversary Edition processor for $100. Based on your review of this product, it appears I will need to overclock this processor in order for it to be good. I understand only that it means overdriving it with electricity to get extra performance at the expense of running it hot and needing a nice cooler. What do I need to know to overclock this processor? And do you have any tips for success? Sincerely, Edith, employee for Micro Center. I'm inferring that. That's not true. So, guys,
Yikes. Yikes.
I mean, you never know. People get very sneaky. All right, so what's the story here? I mean, perpetual overclocking as a policy, as an operating procedure, these days is a lot safer than it used to be. So let's walk through that, Mr. Wasson or Mr. Kowalski. One of you two will have a better feeling on that system guide. So tell us what Edith needs to know.
I did an article about overclocking the Pentium Anniversary Edition, and you can get those things up to 4.6 to 4.8 gigahertz, and they're really fast. Even though they're dual core, they're going to be super fast that way. One way to think about it is if you get to 4.8 gigahertz with 2 cores, that's kind of generally just going to be faster than like 4 Haswell cores at 2.4 gigahertz. That's a pretty fast CPU, and for single-threaded performance, it's just awesome. So it's a great gaming CPU, and it's a great price. I like that deal at Micro Center. I would jump on it. In terms of
you too, I'm just
okay. Yeah, I've been working at Micro Center.
You get extra 10% off with offer code micro.
Because I recommended that Aria thing too that they sell. So apparently, yes, that's no. Anyway, look, we don't have a specific guide to overclocking that CPU, but if you look at my article about overclocking it, I explain how I did it, and it's really simple. You can set the multiplier, which is sort of controls the clock speed, and you can set the voltage, and don't go over the amount of voltage I gave it. Make sure you have good cooling. It's pretty simple, but I give you a couple of other tips because it can be more complicated than that, and it can be daunting if you haven't done it before. One thing is, of course, now Jeff's dog is attacking us.
Someone's at the door. Hold on.
Yeah.
Just in case it's the Terminator, let's stay on the line.
One thing I would say is Jeff actually does, in his motherboard reviews, he looks at the auto overclocking features of those boards. And so with like the MSI Z97 board, you should probably be able to use their software to just auto overclock the CPU a little bit. And that's a good starting point. It can establish a baseline if you're new to overclocking just by sort of automatically seeing what the CPU will do. Usually those utilities will give you a stable config, and usually they're fairly conservative compared to what you can do manually. The other thing is, look, go into the TR forums and talk to people there, and they will give you all the guidance you need on how to go about overclocking. They'll explain about like your particular CPU and what voltage you don't want to go over, and things like that. It's a great community, and it's a good place to go for it. So I can't, other than the few tips I've given you in terms of just like looking at our articles, I don't think I can get into all the nuts and bolts of it on the podcast. But look at the articles, try the auto overclocking feature of the motherboard, and then get into the forums, and you can get all the info you need there.
Yeah, having a forum community, as I learned years ago, is a great sort of way to dive into some of these more complex and touchy subjects, because you can just ask a lot of questions and learn from other people's mistakes and whatnot. A community that is very friendly. Next question. This is, again, a live question from our chat room, twitch.tv/thetechreport. Westbrook 348. I've been looking at triple monitor 3D surround setups to go with a pair of GTX 970s in SLI. I've never played 570 5760 by 1080, 120 hertz before. In your experience, is it better or worse than a single monitor, 1440p and 4K? Again, Scott, that's straight up to you.
Yeah, except I played 5760 by 1080, but I've never played at 120 hertz 5760 by 1080. So I can't specifically speak from experience on this, but I'll tell you what I think about those type of surround setups. Look, the human visual field is approximately 16 by 9. The monitors that you're talking about are each 16 by 9 aspect ratio. You put one of them in front of your face closely enough, and you can pretty much fill your field of view. And because you have bezels in between the different monitors, you kind of tend to want to focus on just that center frame. And so when I've been playing on a triple surround setup with 3 16 by 9 monitors in horizontal mode like that, like landscape mode, then the 2 side monitors usually are just like peripheral vision, right? And because most games, they have a certain kind of field of view, and then things kind of get distorted when you get out beyond that. When you have 3 monitors, like especially like the outer half of each of the 2 outer displays, the visuals you get there are very much like spread out and kind of distorted. And so I don't think it's a great experience. It is kind of neat that you can sort of see things out of the corner of your eye, but I really do prefer just having a big monitor in my face. So I think a 27-inch display at 2560 by 1440 is the sweet spot right now. And if you're going to spend a little more, of course this gets pricey, but something like G-Sync is really nice too. That's a great way to enhance the experience. But also just a high refresh display will get you additional smoothness. So I'm not a big fan of the triple setup like you're talking about personally for those reasons. But I could see if you're being super competitive in an FPS and you want to get that sort of out of the corner of your eye advantage, having that wide field of view could be something some people like.
I've also got to chime in that 3-screen setups are perfect for driving games.
Yeah.
Great for other genres, but if you like cockpit mode in a driving game, I've got a 3-way setup. It's only 60 hertz, but it's fantastic for that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree there, and that's I don't spend enough time in driving games to think about that primarily, but it is good for that.
So just as a quick aside here, the reason I'm looking down at my phone is I downloaded the twitch.tv app to see if I could get a little live stream going on my phone. And I can't find our channel on the app. Like I'm typing the TR podcast, nothing. The Tech Report podcast, nothing. I wonder if we're not like mobile enabled because we're not paying them money or something.
I have no idea. I'm pretty sure that Nathan.
It's just the Tech Report.
Yeah, it's the Tech Report. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I looked for that too, but I'll try one more time here.
Pretty sure that Nathan, my son, who's been helping us out, was watching the last stream on his phone while we were doing it. So I think it's doable, but I don't know how. Because I've been streaming it myself.
No results found. Oh, well. All right. Cyril's doing calisthenics. We better keep going. All right. So, last question, and then we'll move on. This is from Gimpy22. You sure? Any updates on Project Denver and potential performance issues with the in-order execution?
And sadly, no. Like last time, we had the same question, the same answer. Like, I am working on some things that may eventually get me to the point where I buy a Nexus 9 and test Project Denver, but I'm not there yet, and so I'm sorry. But I think it's coming, and the thing is, it's going to be a little bit interesting because if you just run the standard benchmarks, you're probably not going to find too many weak points. So we got to get our hands on it eventually, and then we have to have some time and figure out where the weak points might be and how we capture that performance. So it's an interesting question. I still want to look at it, but I haven't had time to do it.
Alrighty. Moving on into the news and reviews. First story here. Reports are that Assassin's Creed Unity, this is of course the next in the long series of Assassin's Creed games, this one having to do with the French Revolution, is a glitchy performance hog. Now, I think I recall us talking about the fact that the system requirements for this game were going to be excessive. Now we're discovering, it seems, that it doesn't seem to run very well either. Cyril, this is your story, as I'm fond of saying. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's not a lot to say. Like people are running into all kinds of. Well, this applies to the like the release version. You know, there's been I think 2 patches so far that have attempted to sort of, iron out some of those kinks. But it's still, like at launch, lots of bugs. Characters sort of the ragdoll animations were broken, and you can see in the screenshot and the news post, like the main character is sort of hanging off a ledge that doesn't exist. A lot of little bugs like that, and on top of that, the performance was poor even on fairly high-end systems. Like someone with a like on the NeoGAF forums on with a GTX 970, actually several people with GTX 970s had trouble sort of sustaining 60 frames per second, even with the detail level sort of turned down a little bit, which is, the 970 is a pretty fast card. It's fairly close to the 980, which is, the fastest card short of the GTX Titan. So, and apparently on AMD cards it ran even worse. So yeah, clearly some optimization issues there.
Now, yeah, I tried to install this on a couple on my GPU test systems, and first of all, you have to use Uplay from Ubisoft, which is terrible. And I went through these procedures I found online in their forums for how you because I downloaded on my main PC the whole game, and it's 30 something gigs, and I wanted to copy it to other systems. I go through this procedure, and then okay, I had to jump through these hoops, but I thought I had it installed, and then I rebooted the system and came back a little later, and it just started downloading the whole game again on the other system. You can't move the files from one system to another system correctly in this thing. And then on the Radeon side, when I installed the game and ran it, it came up and the game started in a little window in the top corner of the screen, and it was super low res, and I hit Alt Enter to make it go full screen, and then it was 640 by 480 on my 4K display, and it was all jacked up and didn't look right, and I couldn't. I didn't even get much further than that. I didn't even get into the game much because I was trying to solve all those problems, and then I guess people are just saying that it's basically not playable. Have you seen all the screenshots posted online of non-player characters with no eye, or with eyes and no faces and weird? Yeah. They're super aggressive about they want to get one of these out every year at the holiday season, and they're sacrificing the quality of the game for that schedule. And man, it's not a good bet. You just get the sense they're gonna drive this thing into the ground, and people aren't gonna want to buy their products.
Yeah, and if the game was good, it would be another story. But it's apparently a lot of people are saying it's not that great, as a game, even if you ignore the bugs. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's almost maybe bad that they have this ability now to push out patches, because they seem to think that they can ship something broken and fix it later, and that it has to be in a better state than this before you say that it's ready to go.
Yep.
Ubisoft hard at work on further AC Unity performance tweaks.
It's just more of the same.
More of the same.
Yeah, they're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's patch 2 I think had some performance fixes. The patch 3 is going to have even more. They sort of identified some issues with the instruction queue apparently, which is overloaded. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it's basically still work in progress essentially.
They did share information about how they handle serious computational load balancing stuff, right, with the instruction queue stuff, Cyril. it's just weird because it sounds like the type of thing that you do to optimize your game before you ship it.
Yeah. And they still haven't set a schedule for patch 3, so this is kind of up in the air about when exactly people are going to get a playable game that performs reasonably well.
So I have here in the show notes, Scott. Do we want to have our guests on, or what do you want to do?
We do. Let's see if we can add him to the call and make this happen. I'm trying.
Hello.
JJ.
Oh.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, all right. We are live on Twitch.
Yeah, I've been watching.
All
I'm
right.
sorry. We're all sorry to hear that.
And
just please forgive us. It's just we're working on it.
And so, are you ready to join us?
Whenever you want.
Okay.
Sure.
Can you turn your video on?
Yeah, it should be on, sir.
I see a.
Ooh, sir, I like this guy.
I see a picture of a motherboard. I don't
Really?
see any. Yeah, I don't see any video.
That's weird.
I see a video in the box that has my name under it, which suggests to me that you're trying to supplant me, Scott.
Yeah, we've actually got the
all.
labels are all messed up. Jordan, you're now our guest, and we have a motherboard sitting in for you. That's
All right. That's fine.
But JJ, I don't know if you can turn on your Skype video.
Yeah, I checked it beforehand. I can. Let me just try this again.
Please,
something's happening.
Boring
work?
stuff.
It looks like it's working. It looks like something is working. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening now. It's starting. It's trying to add you.
That's what thinking about it.
I got a prompt on my end that asked me to accept the video
Well,
or
accept it.
something.
That's
I
your
did.
the problem.
I
Oh,
clicked
okay.
it. It's just if maybe other people got that same prompt, so check
I
your
did.
Skype
Yeah, I
windows.
did get a prompt. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I got it. Oh, got it too.
I did not.
Actually, you probably did and haven't seen it.
Oh, there he is. I see him. Living large, big and bold.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
There he is.
Still not seeing anything.
Yeah, me either.
Yep.
Well, this is completely. I had no idea.
Well, what happened there?
I no idea.
It's a whole bunch of trees.
Oh, that was that was me minimizing the Skype window to see if there was a prompt, but there was no
Gotcha.
prompt. JJ, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop you off the call, and
Sure.
then I'm going to add you again, and we'll
Okay.
see if I get a prompt because apparently Skype isn't giving it to me. So hold on just a second. Let's see if we can make this work. There he is, right there in Jordan's spot, which is awesome. But all right, thank you for joining us, everybody. This is JJ Guerrero from Asus, who has
Hello,
agreed to
everybody.
join us this evening. And I believe that we have kind of a bit of a mixed agenda for you as our guest, JJ. We will take any reader viewer questions that we might get. And
Yep.
then there are a few things that I'd like to kind of chat with you about as well. So,
Sure.
so guys, if you're in the chat channel, if you're watching and you want to ask anything about Asus products, JJ, I think you probably are up to speed on almost all the stuff you guys have, right?
Yeah. I try to keep pretty. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, all you guys have known about us for a long time, and you know that if there's one thing that we do, it's put out a lot of product. So it can be a little bit difficult at times, but I try to keep up to speed with just about the majority of our product stacks.
Okay, so here's
Before Scott,
yeah.
before we keep going, for the purposes of those who are listening later and also live, JJ, why don't you just tell us about what you do at Asus, your role sort of in the big machine, so we have a sense of what you bring to the table besides your great red shirt.
Sure. Yeah. So quick recap is, I've been with the company now for a little bit over 6 years. Started off the company actually in technical support, and then moved into actually the technical marketing department, where actually I worked with guys like Scott and Jeff and the rest of the TR team, along with actually all of North American technical media that covered a lot of the things like motherboards and graphics cards and stuff like that. And then a little bit ago, I transitioned out of that. Now I work internally with the company on product development, community engagement, and a couple other things here and there. So it's a little bit kind of a hodgepodge of different things internally within the company. But I think a large part of that is just helping to focus in feedback from a lot of different places, and then helping to be a mouthpiece for Asus, and helping to provide our feedback, to our community and to our users and the people that are interested in finding about what we're doing.
And you're based where?
I'm based out of here, same as our headquarters, which is in Fremont, California.
Excellent. So you are in a lot of ways sort of in charge of managing and curating the Asus constituency, and sort of understanding what they're looking for, and relaying that back to product development or marketing, and then also sort of being a spokesperson to sort of keep them in the loop on what you guys are doing on your end. Is that a fair summarization?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, definitely, it takes a team to do everything that we do, just like you guys.
Sure.
TR is just more than one person, but I happen to be kind of one of those, I think, pivot people that I pivot in a lot of different directions, and then help to funnel different things back to the right people to help to keep things kind of stream rolling along.
There you go. Well, as you may or may not know, if you've listened to the show, as my day job is in PR, so I understand your world quite well. Hats off to you, brother. It's a hard one. All right. So sorry to derail, Scott, but I just think for the background, I'd love to sort of set that up, and then now we can dive into some of the questions.
No, that's great. In fact, Jordan, that was my next question, but you did it
sorry.
better. And so there you go. But I've known JJ since, I think, when you first started at Asus. How long ago was that?
That's a little bit over 6 years ago now, so it's been a bit.
Wow.
And he came out here to visit and say hi and get to know us when we first started, and we worked with him.
Yeah, and I had some amazing barbecue. I still keep wanting to go back just to have some more.
It's probably time. 6 years is enough.
I think it would be. And we've got some interesting things down the roadmap, and we're trying to shake a couple of things up, and who knows, maybe it might happen.
Excellent. Well, listen, we already have questions.
You're doing barbecue now, or
what? It's Kansas City, man. You need to come, Jordan. You need to come.
No. I was joking. I was saying Asus is going to start releasing barbecue recipes. It's the Asus Republic of Gamers barbecue sauce, but they spell sauce like SAWCE. It's weird, but
with LED lights on the bottles.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
I did want to mention a couple of quick things, if I could, really quick.
Sure.
Just from some of the stuff I saw before. So, of course, I'm totally biased, but somebody, had a question on the monitor front. But a lot of people, when they ask kind of similar questions to me, I really like our VN24H monitor. You can get it like at Newegg for like $180. It's 24 inches in IPS, and it's a 1 millimeter bezel on the unit. Some of the advantages too, comparatively, when you get to the more aggressive price points, like at $150, $180, kind of like motherboards and different things like that too. Warranty is usually one of the things that also gets compromised on, and I think that when you go more aggressive on a price point, you still want to be able to maintain, I think, that money that you've invested. So it's nice that still, even at those more aggressive price points, we still give you the 3-year warranty, and we cover two-way shipping in the event that something has to be repaired or serviced on the monitor. So I think that's a pretty good monitor for the money, and you still get an IPS panel. And outside of that, the other one on the 3-way, I totally agree with Jeff in that I think that for actually fighting games and racing titles, I really do like surround. But the tricky part is that he mentioned 120 hertz for his setup, and we make our VG series monitors which have 120 hertz, but the bezels are quite a bit larger, and so we usually find in the community most people that really want to be serious about having those span together, they'll actually literally take the bezels apart and file them down so they can get really, really tight packaged in monitors. But I agree with your point, Scott, on the point that when you go to larger sizes, so like 27 or 30 inches, and you try to span, it doesn't really work well. But I think if you keep the target down closer to about 24 inches for a 3-way spanned resolution, it's actually a lot more usable. But the tricky part is going to be is that if you want that higher refresh rate, they don't make them in thin bezels. All right, now the best you can do in a thin bezel design is going to be 60 hertz, and if you want 120, you're going to have to go up to monitors like we have with the VG series, where it's a bit thicker bezel, and a kind of, I think, a curveball mix. And I haven't seen you talk about it too much, but AMD did some really interesting stuff where they offered now the mixed mode resolutions for Eyefinity, where they want you to be able to kind of be able to take like a 2560 monitor, put that in the center, and then you could go to two smaller, lower resolution panels and still have that image spanned. They kind of argued that it's an interesting value proposition, which it definitely is, because you don't have to drop the money for 3 ultra high resolution monitors. I've been doing some internal testing with it, and it's kind of an interesting setup. I don't know if it's exactly something that I would jump on, but it's an interesting setup that I think from a cost standpoint and depending on the level of immersion you're looking for is kind of interesting too.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, the compatibility is got to be weird. Does it scale down from a higher resolution, or what does a game see when you have mixed resolution displays?
So they're handling it in the driver, from what I understand. So you're right in terms of the compatibility. It's kind of one of those things that you're a little bit dependent on. But I think we both also know that anytime you enter into the era of widescreen gaming across multiple panels and any kind of configurations like that, you always got to spend a little bit more homework to find out what's the game look like, or what's the HUD's going to be like. Are you going to have to modify, INIs? Are you going to have to run like widescreen game fixing? There's a lot of little variables like that, and it's definitely gotten better, I think, in the last 2 years, especially for more premier titles. But definitely, if you're trying to do it on more indie titles or B kind of titles, as they call it, there's a lot more availability that throws into play. But I think the cool thing is, regardless, I'm a DIY enthusiast. I think, like all you guys, that I'm still excited to just see that there's a lot of different types of options for ultimately users that are looking for these type of environments, right? Everybody's got a little bit of a different kind of scenario that they tend to favor towards, and it's cool that we're not stuck to one specifically now. You really have a multitude of options to try to be able to figure out, what works best for you, and even at varying price points, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, we've got some questions for you queued up. So let's go ahead and answer those, if you will.
Sure.
The first one is whether Asus has any plans for a Republic of Gamers 4K G-Sync monitor. That's got to be a popular one. So
Yes.
What can you tell us?
We definitely do. Actually, from the very beginning of Onset, when we actually went to mass production, so we formally released the ROG monitor, we had been getting people inquiring as, when are you guys going to do 4K? And it's something that we're looking at. And I think that first and foremost, when we released the Swift, we knew that there was a huge amount of people that were interested in it, but we still kind of wanted to see what was the reality of what users had in terms of their experience, the mass implementation of seeing users actually utilize it, what's their feedback, real world with G-Sync. I mean, we know what we saw internally. You guys as editors getting the chance to experience it, that it was definitely an impressive tech. But it's one thing to have that limited number of evaluations and then jump into that bigger pool of just having a lot more users give you feedback on what those experiences. And I think that right now, with the landscape of how things have been changing in terms of GPU performance, game engines, and so many other variables, we're just kind of keeping the trade on things. And also panels right now are very interesting. There's kind of a whole new resurgence of a lot of panels that haven't fundamentally shifted from production standpoint, probably in about 3 years. And because of that, that can make monitor development very tricky, especially for like a premium product, like an ROG product. The Swift was in development for close to 2.5 years. And it changed along the road a lot of time, because we started development on that monitor even before G-Sync came around. And about midway, we had to start all over again, because NVIDIA came to us, let us know about it, and we said, hey, this is going to make this monitor that we wanted to do, which was 2560 by 1440 high refresh rate, low response monitor. Is like, oh, this is going to even make that much better, right? But there was a lot of learning and a lot of adapting that had to happen. But right now, I think we're continuing to kind of just feel it out, see how the situation goes. And but definitely, you guys know us. We'll definitely make noise about it if we're going to put one out. And I definitely say we've got more than enough feedback that I think that we're interested in moving towards that direction. But nothing to confirm as far as saying, hey, look towards 6 months from now or something like that. But we've already done quite a number of 4K panels, and I think we're definitely going to continue to do that. And right now, it's just collecting that feedback.
Hey, if you want to do a product announcement on the podcast, you're welcome to go ahead. But okay, so let's see. We got more people want to know also about IPS panels, IPS monitors with G-Sync or FreeSync. Is that people seem to think that's the ultimate, right? They need to get
Yeah.
like maybe 4K or at least 2560 by 1440. They want to get variable refresh with G-Sync or maybe FreeSync, and then they want to get like high refresh rates, and then they want to get IPS. How many of those things can they have at once? And what does this look like? Is it something that's like, are we going to see some good things at CES, or is it maybe like something that happens later?
Yeah, at this point, it's something that happens later, or it's kind of like a little bit of a tricky compromise. I mean, what we did with the Swift, I mean, I think actually your review of it summed it up really well. We tried to really push, I think, TN to a state that even enthusiasts would be pretty satisfied with. And to be honest, definitely the majority of the monitors I've had that I have personally and even use here for testing, they're PLS or they're IPS based. But I think that the quality of that Swift monitor is very, very solid. It's a true native 8-bit panel. I think it performs quite well. But the reality is that you're looking just at panel limitations. You can't have it all. You can't have this panel that meets 1 millisecond, 144 hertz, has IPS. Or if you start to do stuff like crazy stuff like overdriving the panels, you have really big problems in terming, maintaining color uniformity, brightness consistency. It just becomes to the point that you could probably achieve doing it, but it would be at such a point of attrition to get a panel rate to do it that it would be exorbitantly expensive. And I think that we tested the waters doing that in itself with what we had to do with the Swift, where we had to get that panel actually developed because there was no panel manufacturer that even was producing that. So it doesn't mean that it's off the table. I think that it is totally possible. And I think from a time frame perspective, we can probably look to see some stuff, especially from some of these new type of panels that we're seeing from some of the companies like AU Optics and some of the others. Maybe in about a year's time frame, we might get to this kind of semi holy grail type of panel that really kind of creates this convergence of everything that we're looking for. But I still think that we're a little bit off realistically from there, and we need to have those things kind of stabilize a bit more.
Okay. Well, it's nice to hear it might be coming. I'm starting to wonder, like, because I want like no bezels and a giant array of them, and then it just starts to getting into, well, where you should be printing OLEDs down at the local shop when the future comes, and you can just get a giant roll of those, and they're super high refresh. And have you seen like a Galaxy Note 4? The display on that thing is amazing. I'm ready for that on the desktop.
But I think that's the tricky thing too, is that even when it comes to stuff, like a lot of people focus on just one part of a monitor, but like even the housing, right, for the Swift, that's an entirely custom housing, and it's just like chassis vendors. If you guys go talk to the chassis vendors, they'll tell you how much it costs to kick off the tooling for a chassis alone, right? It's actually very expensive. So that's why the really smart guys, like Corsair has been a perfect example, that they've known how to create that right model and then be able to respin it or modify it just slightly to really minimize the cost on what that initial tooling cost for that original chassis. And when you have to go to a new panel, new design, a new ID, people don't want just this one panel. They want it to be super slim. They want all these other little things, and that means, okay, well, we have to spend money on not just R&D on the internal scaler, on the panel sourcing, but then redesigning a tooling and all these things. And then, of course, we have to ultimately work within the scopes of how the reviewers work too, because you guys are going to definitely come to us and be like, the value proposition on this monitor, I love it, but I wish it was $300 less too, right? So it's tricky.
Yeah. Hey, it's not my fault that I'm cheap and everybody who reads the site is cheap, but it's just people are cheap. I mean, that's just we want everything for no money. If you guys could just do that, the reviews would be great every time. But okay, let's move over to away from monitors, because I think we kind of covered that there's a future there that looks good. But there's a question we have that's a little bit on a different subject. It's about the OC socket, which is a bit of a controversial thing that happened with the X99 chipset. And the question is, what are the extra pins used for on the OC socket? On these, and this is on certain X99 boards. Can you explain what is an OC socket and what are the extra pins about?
So it pretty much is just kind of our way of being able to, I'd say, maximize kind of the way that we can work with the CPU in terms of how the voltage is passed through the CPU and certain characteristics in terms of stabilization. And this just came through a lot of internal analysis, and it's actually not something that's on some of our X99 boards. It's actually on all of them, from the entry level Dash A that Jeff recently looked at, all the way to like the Rampage 5 Extreme, or even our Dash E WS. So we spent a lot of time to test it and validate and make sure it's confident in it. But the long term, really, it's in the same vein as something like our T topology, which was a customized trace layout to optimize latency between the actual memory socket, the CPU socket, and the actual DRAM banks themselves. So us as a motherboard manufacturer, this is part of what we do when it comes to design. We're going to try to look at each avenue of where we can try to improve performance. Sometimes it might be in relation to voltage consistency, voltage stability, and we're looking for every single little edge. It's become harder and harder over the last 4 years because more things move on die. So you have less variance in terms of something that might be on board, right? And so this was just one of those ways where we say, hey, we're able to normalize things, get things a little bit tighter for here. And X99 was a very kind of special platform in this degree, where it made a little bit more rational sense to do something that extreme because of just the extreme high amount of current that the CPU pulls. I mean, it's a beastly platform. That when you start to clock it up, it's just pulling a huge amount through. So we were just looking for ways to be able to normalize that, make it a little bit more consistency along with the rest of the design.
So I still don't get what there's some extra pins that don't get used in most X99 boards that you guys take advantage of to do more voltage supply, or what is it?
I'd say it's a way that we balance the actual voltage delivery to the CPU. It's not a question that we're supplying more, because it's still technically the same amount, right, that you would apply from, let's say, a reference board to another board. But there's going to be differences in terms of how the CPU receives that underneath load, right? You're going to have some variances. So that's predominantly where it's at. I mean, there's a couple of other little things tied into it, but just like some companies, we don't like to go into all those details because there are companies that they mirror adopting certain those things. And so that's kind of one of those things that we want to put out the information, allow users know that, hey, this is something that we've implemented and we put in there. But at the same time, we didn't, put out all the information out there. And that's pretty much, what we're going to say when it comes to that.
Okay. Hey, JJ,
He's talking about Gigabyte.
we can say that. He can't say that. But we
I don't know. I just picked a motherboard company that wasn't Asus.
All you guys have been in the industry for a long time. You know how competitive it is, and there's a lot of different ways to take it in terms of whether people say copying is good or bad. I mean, ultimately, the consumer wins in the long run. If we do really great jobs on our designs and we get competitors that imitate and incorporate those designs, it's better for the industry because the product gets elevated, forces us to be more innovative, and the consumer gets better product. But at the same time, it means that we have to keep going back internally and pushing the envelope. And that's literally what the OC socket is. It's just us refining and maximizing how we're able to work with the characteristics of how we're handling that engagement between the CPU and the parameters of adjustment that we have available, and trying to make sure that those numbers at the end of the day when we test everything are as tight and as good as we can make them.
Okay. So I get a little bit from that. So anyway, let's move on. We got a couple other questions. One of them is the last one from the chat here is just a question about what happened when you guys released that Republic of Gamers G-Sync display. It came out first in Europe, and I guess that they're maybe more readily available there, because I know they've sold like crazy here. Like there aren't that many available. So why go first in Europe, and why are we not getting as many as we'd like here in North America?
Yeah, okay. So all very good questions. So I'll try to answer this as concisely and as quickly and hopefully as clearly as I can. One important thing to remember is that every single region is independent, essentially, of our primary headquarters team. So we're actually our own operating businesses in every region. So Germany is their own operating business unit. Brazil is their own operating business unit. ACI, as it is for North America and Canada, is their own operating business unit. In different countries, you have different forms of distribution, have different commitments, and all those things get factored into how do we bring a product and how we put it out to our customers. As an example here, because of the high amount of enthusiasts and demand, you don't just bring in like 100 pieces and try to immediately put that out. So we generally have to be able to meet minimum requirements, right? So we might have to say, okay, hey, we're going to hold inventory until we can get 3 or 4 shipments, until we can get 1,000 pieces ready, so that we can then put those 1,000 pieces out to Amazon, Newegg, some other distributors that'll go to smaller retailers and things like that. Whereas in Germany, maybe their distribution channel works a little bit differently. Maybe they can go with a smaller scale. So as such, that's kind of how an area that you have it broken down. But from then there, our local PM team, they really look very, very, very closely at supply chain. And what's the demand, and if they have to, they're putting in literally requests, just like the Swift. We have literally an ongoing fixed 2-week shipment process, where I think it's like right now it's something like 800 to 1,400 units that try to come in every 7 to 10 days ballpark, and then those just go straight out into the channel. And that varies. That number can be brought up, it can be brought down. Sometimes we want to do 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 of X product, but sometimes you run into yields, right? Where maybe the panel manufacturer can't produce it. Maybe we're having issues with the tooling of the brand new housing. There's a lot of little factors like that. But definitely we try to be very conscientious of all those things and respect the fact that nobody wants a paper launch. Everybody wants a hard launch, and they want it to be executed as smoothly as possible. And that is definitely our goal too.
Yeah, it's good to have people wanting your stuff, but it's better if you can supply even more, I guess. Okay, so
that's my problem with dating in New York City.
Yeah, I know, Jordan. That's got to be rough for you, man.
By the way, can I just give a shout out to a member who's just joined the chat room, Francois Pied Noel, a stalwart member of the PC hardware community, has joined us.
Yeah. Hello, Francois. He's in the chat. I don't know if maybe he can hear us.
I presume he can hear.
Yeah, I assume.
In the chat.
Yeah. So,
yes. Good to have you, buddy.
Yeah. Good dude. Hey, JJ, we have another, we have a lot more stuff we have to talk about, so we probably shouldn't keep you on, but I do want to talk about one more thing before I let you go, which is
no problem.
The other night we had had our Friday night topic on mobile gaming addictions, and you chimed in on Twitter with a note about your addiction, which is my addiction too, which is Kingdom Rush.
Yeah,
right?
I love Kingdom Rush.
Man, I spent a lot of hours on my Nexus 7. It's a tower defense game.
Yes.
And so there are two of them. There's the original and then Frontiers. And I've basically finished both of them. I've kind of got all leveled up, and I didn't ever buy any extra heroes or anything, so it was a serious effort to make that happen. But you said Origins is a new one is coming out?
Yeah, Origins actually just dropped today.
Oh, guys, I gotta go.
I'm downloading it right now. I'm afraid of what you're about to do to me here, Scott.
No, it is. It is a total time suck. I mean, I totally agree with Scott. I'm first and foremost a passionate PC gamer. You guys were just talking about actually ACU, and actually I've been enjoying ACU along with a couple of other titles. But Kingdom Rush, if you just if you love RTS, if you like strategy, the mechanics are really well done. The upgrade paths are really well done. Really nice, clean, and stylized art. Just an awesome game. Ironhide Studios, who's done that, I think has done a fantastic model of, you end up paying, X amount for the game, right? $3-4, whatever it is. I think Origins is $5, right? But you walk away from going, man, that is beyond worth $5, and totally worth it. But it's a very, very, very cool game.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. So, yeah. Well, I didn't realize it was out now. So, guys, thanks for joining us. And now, I'll hold off for a couple hours, JJ, and then I'll be at 2 a.m. I'm going to be sitting there with the Thrones playing on the Nexus 7. So
that's how it happens.
I played a game that was a very similar design that I have stopped playing called Defenders, and it builds itself as a tower defense game, but it has a lot of the mechanics feel a lot like a trading card game, and it was great. It's well conceived, and graphics were really good. That's one of the reasons I downloaded it. It was sort of highlighted for its graphical ability, but there's so many of these games where it's just poorly thought out, and by that I mean I've gotten to this point where you can't progress levels because you don't have weapons that are good enough to kill at the highest difficulty settings to get to the next level, but you're not gaining points or coins or whatever fast enough to get there, and even buying coins doesn't really solve the problem because you can't buy better towers. So you get stuck in this weird sort of dead zone where you really can't progress, but you're just sort of playing the same levels over and over again, not going anywhere. And it's like, it's frustrating because you're like, I like this game, but this game is now useless to me.
Yeah, it's
So-
limiting your almost enjoyment of how you want to be able to progress and enjoy the game.
Exactly. You want to
but
have that
definitely-
feeling. Yeah. You always want to have that feeling where you're just good enough to get through. And then when you get a major upgrade, you can really kill it for a little bit and feel that the joy of destroying those aliens or whatever they are before they even come out the door. And then it gets a little, you want that sort of stop start of progression. So I'm excited to try this other defense game. But yes, to Scott's point, JJ, a pleasure having you on, sir. Thank you for joining us and answering
thank you.
questions with candor and a good shirt. I'm gonna keep going back to the shirt. I'm just working with what I got here, folks. So you know.
And just if anybody's got any questions, they can always feel free. They can reach me at pcdiy.asus.com. That's the email that I answer. And if there's any questions relative to Asus, feel free, drop them there, and I do my best to try to get back to people, in a fairly prompt time frame. Scott, I know you wanted to wrap up quickly, but if you have just like 3 minutes, I'd love to quickly talk about that cadence piece that I talked about, because it's something that it's a very long-term scope for us, and I think it's very community related. And if I can speak to that really quickly, I think it'd be really cool.
Sure. Let me set a 3-minute timer. Hold on. Go ahead.
Cool. That's fine. Let's try. So, are you cool with that, Scott?
Yeah, no, go right ahead. And this is the type of thing where we maybe give you some feedback and you take that back and make things better, right? So
Yeah, that's what we try to do. I think we've shown we've got a pretty solid track record for that. So one of the things that I think we've seen within the last couple of years, especially with mobile products, and the way that people kind of look at those products, the software is a very large piece to how you experience a product, right? I mean, Lollipop is getting issued out for Android devices right now, even though you bought that older device at a previous time, when it was running a different build of the operating system, and part of that kind of experience that you have at continuing to want to use that product and it evolving comes through the refinement that you're getting with the software that comes with that, right? And as a motherboard vendor, that's something that we've tried to do, through just updates in general, through software packages and through like UEFI. Like an example is for X79, it was a very long-term platform. And after Z87 came out, we retroactively went back and added every UEFI update feature that we released for Z87 into X79. But we never talked about it. We never told anybody. But that was a huge amount of work to go back and add actually a lot of those really cool features into the UEFI for those users that had that platform. And one of the things that we're thinking about more from a long term is trying to implement a kind of like a fixed software cadence model for us to be able to say, hey, this is what our community is looking for in terms of the feature set and functionality post the launch, right? And try to be able to map that out, kind of in a similar way that you're starting to see that, with NVIDIA, where they started off with the initial concept of what GeForce Experience was, right? And you've seen it gone through now multiple iterations, right? Maybe where it's every 3 months, maybe they add then this next new feature, or they add a new functionality and a new piece, right? But it's working on your pre-existing hardware. And sometimes, of course, the hardware is dependent in terms of enabling maybe the most advanced features. But that's something that we want to look at. And right now, you don't generally see that from a motherboard side, right? Usually when you buy a motherboard, the software suite and everything along with it is kind of like a fixed solution. And you don't necessarily expect there to be new improvements that come to that product until like a next platform, right? And we're looking at kind of that model. And so one of those things is, we want to see what people's interests in that type of philosophy will be. And ultimately, really where that comes to from a bottom line perspective is adding value to us, right? And that's hard because, I feel bad for Jeff. It's only become harder and harder from, the years that he's been doing it as a motherboard reviewer. But the amount of stuff that you have to digest and be able to break down and communicate to a user is massive. It's not a trivial amount of information, especially for a vendor like us. And this is only going to make things more complicated, but maybe in some ways it makes it easier because maybe you don't have to focus so much on that one initial launch, and maybe you cover just that software piece every 3 months or every 6 months when we release that big update pack that adds these 4 or 5 new features. So I think it's an interesting thing that we're kind of trying to play out here, and we're
Overtime.
we're working on some things here, I think, internally in terms of how we would collect the feedback from users and how it would work as part of the software. But we've already created a very modular piece of the way the software works and stuff like that. So, for anybody that's listening in the chat, if they like the idea, I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. And like I said, share it around, post it in the forums, and we'll be spreading more of this message as time goes by.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think if you had we're doing an update for like all of our recent motherboards or motherboards back to a certain date or whatever, and here's a new feature set. Everybody gets it in the firmware and the software. And you did that consistently, like every so often something would drop, and basically everybody who owns your stuff within the past few years or whatever, they get those new things, and then you do that again 6 months later or something like that. That could be nice. It could be really nice. Pulling it off is hard. I honestly, my ambitions for motherboard software is like that I can download something for Windows and install it, and it knows my motherboard and it works right.
Yep.
and that like it doesn't break things when I update the firmware because I need to fix a bug and I have to do that.
Yep.
It has to be a lot better for people to want to go to the trouble of doing those updates for features, right?
Yep.
And they have to not have the experience that they're risking disrupting their user experience because of problems, right? But you guys have been good on that stuff lately, so I don't know. Jeff's got this look in his eyes like, my gosh, man, I have to deal with covering more firmware stuff. But Jeff, you're gonna be all
Well, it's
right.
good. If you listen to all the stuff that I want to put in the firmware, then it'll be great. I'll talk about it all day.
Yeah, if you need ideas for what to put in next, then just talk to Jeff. He's got them.
Yeah.
But no, I think that can be fun. So thanks for the insight. And yeah, if you're listening and you want that to happen, then post in the comments on the podcast, or if you're watching, post wherever. There are lots of places to interact with this. Let us know. JJ, we'll watch that stuff. We'll make sure you get that feedback and
Thank you so much.
go from there.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I totally appreciate it. It's been awesome being able to sync up with you. I haven't talked to you guys in a while, so thank you so much. You guys take it easy and take care. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
All right. Thanks, JJ. Hopefully we can have you back again soon.
Anytime.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool.
Excellent. All right, let's move things forward. Stand by as I figure out where we're left off.
I think the next thing, Jordan, is that we are going to want to talk to Mr. Campman.
More guests.
That's right. Well, he's a writer at the Tech Report.
I
so.
know.
But Jeff did a review of Corsair case, and he's agreed to come on and talk to us about it. So let's see if we can hook up with him and go from there. So let me see if I can add him to the call. And that is a big if. So.
Hey guys,
Hey Jeff, how you doing?
pretty good. Couldn't watch any of the Twitch feed, but that's all right.
What's going on? What's up with that?
I don't know. I'm getting like staggers and just whoa, stuff is jumping around.
You all right?
I'm just letting Scott
One
do
sec.
his thing.
I'm not making anything happen.
No, aren't you? Oh, there it goes. Okay, he's got it set up.
No, I think we're good.
Took less time than I thought it would.
All right, I'm just gonna close Twitch because it's really fucking with my head. Excuse me.
How dare you?
All right, am I recording? Yes, I'm recording. All right,
You are recording. That's good. I appreciate
I
that.
can't hear Scott.
You can't hear. I'm not saying
Okay,
anything.
you're good.
Oh, okay. When I speak, you can hear me. Then
Yes.
okay. That's an important thing for communication.
I think it's important we all hear Scott's
I-
voice.
I-
I think that is
I-
the key message of today's.
I don't know about that, but we have a case review to discuss, and Cyril may be the guy to ask Jeff a few questions about this thing, I think, because Cyril worked closely with him on making this review happen.
I mean, Jeff did all the work. I didn't really work closely, as in sort of tell him what to do.
Okay,
Anyway,
I tried.
all right.
Anyway, but
It's
this is Mr. Campman. This is a Corsair Carbide Air Series 240. This looks like an
Correct.
unusual kind of case to be putting your PC in.
Yeah, it is a little weird. Like most cases, aside from a handful, traditionally follow like a single chamber design where the power supply, the GPU, motherboard, processor, all that stuff is just in one big space. Just think of your regular tower style case. What Corsair has done with the Air 240 is break out the motherboard, GPU, processor into their own dedicated chamber with their own fans to kind of maximize airflow over those components and to isolate the storage into its own compartment where it's not exposed to all that heat. So in theory, it should enhance cooling performance for the parts that need it most.
And the power supply is in the storage compartment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So this is looks like it's a smaller case too.
It is. It is micro ATX and mini ITX case only. Corsair makes a bigger version of it called the Air 540 for ATX motherboards. It follows a similar design, but it's a lot bigger. So this case, it's actually surprisingly small for what it can accept. It's no bigger than the Graphite Series 380T, which is their dedicated lunchboxy mini ITX case. But it can take micro ATX motherboards, which for me, because I have like a sound card and a wireless card in my PC, just having that extra expansion space is really valuable. And the Graphite Series 380T can accept those things. So it's nice to see them keeping people who need more in mind.
Yeah, because Corsair's mini ITX cases, I remember the what was it? The Obsidian 350D, which is also mini
The
ITX.
250D, yeah.
250D, yeah, that's right. And it was kind of big for a mini ITX case. So this time around, they've done sort of a lot with sort of less space, which is good.
Yeah, and the 380T is a big mini ITX case too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
compared to the Cooler Master Elite 110, which is the other mini ITX case I have, it's huge. So, but I like this. I like the fact that they've made it a box and they're taking full advantage of like the footprint. So
how was the build process?
well, it was kind of interesting. I think it's the easiest Corsair small form factor case I've built in. Not that I have like the broadest range of cases to compare it to, but it was a lot easier than the 380T because it's just wide open. You don't have that big non-removable frame all around it. You can get your hands in there really easily. The motherboard backplate hole works. So the build process was pretty good. We did run into one issue, which was that my test motherboard does not have a lot of fan headers on it. It's a mini ITX motherboard, has one CPU fan header and one system fan header. So this case comes with 3 120 millimeter fans, and I had no way to run them. I did not think ahead to buy fan splitters or anything like that. So we ended up
I mean,
like
the 380T comes with its own fan controller, so you would almost expect this one to do as well, but it doesn't.
Well, I mean, it's also a $90 case as opposed to like $150.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, I can understand why they left it out from a cost standpoint. But if so it felt, like out of the box. If I didn't know anything, I may not know anything, but you'd think this was like a micro ATX case that it can handle a mini ITX motherboard, but if you're going to be building mini ITX, you really want to think ahead and have the supplies on hand to control all the fans.
Mm-hmm. So either a board with more fan headers or some kind of splitter or like a third party controller.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, my personal preference is always to have motherboard fan control where possible. Like I have just a Molex to 3-pin adapter here, but like running fans at 100% usually just makes for a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
I tried that. It was, it made quite a racket, and it was just unacceptable. So you definitely want some form of fan control, whether it's like a Zalman fan mate, which is basically it's just a little, I forget what the exact term is for the electrical component in it. Rheostat, that's right. It's just a rheostat that sits between your fans and your motherboard, and it allows you to control the voltage. But yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way is just to buy a motherboard with the right number of fan headers. They're not like micro ATX and mini ITX motherboards with numerous fan headers are not rare anymore, and they're not that much more expensive.
Hmm. Yeah, you just have to
So-
watch out. Although, so the interesting thing is that this case, like when you tested temperatures and noise, it actually doesn't perform that badly without any of the other fans,
Yeah.
the case fans plugged in.
Right. And I was kind of surprised by that too. But it does, like, having two fans and a push-pull configuration on my cooler, I think, it gets enough hot air out of the top of the case to, make it
So which CPU cooler did you use again?
Oh, I got a fancy new Cooler Master Neptune 120 XL, which is Cooler Master's like upgraded, brand new, super fancy closed loop liquid cooler line. And I just tested the 240 millimeter version of that cooler. Unfortunately, I've had one of their lower end coolers in my test rig for a long time. It's the Sidon 120V. But that cooler actually started leaking during the course of my testing.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's not good. You don't want coolant on your components. So we took that out. We got in touch with Cooler Master. They said, hey, well, we'll send you this one, and we'll take a look at the Sidon and see how it failed. We're still waiting for word on that. But the Neptune at 120XL, I really like the Neptune line of coolers in general. Like, it has a better pump, a better radiator, a thicker radiator in this case, better hoses. I mean, which you would expect, given that it's probably 3 times as expensive.
Right,
as
but
the
basically
local
it's
stuff.
a 120 mil closed loop cooler,
Correct.
and with like a fan sandwich, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
It uses, the cooler is sandwiched between the fans, but it doesn't really matter.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
A radiator sandwich.
Yeah.
So that was the only those fans provided all the airflow basically
Right.
in the case, and it's
Yeah,
still
I went rogue in several ways on this review.
Right.
Like the top, for better or for worse, but the radiator actually isn't supposed to go where I put it. There's not really a mount there. It just works because of the fact that I'm using a mini ITX motherboard. Like, if you're using micro ATX, that wouldn't work. There's just no space for it. But this unsupported, unofficial configuration, it still performed really well.
Well, it actually performed better. I recall you trying the liquid cooler in the recommended spot, which is at the front, right? And
Right.
the graphics card actually got hotter, so this was a
Right.
better setup for a mini ITX system.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, I prefer in systems where you have exhaust fans, I prefer to set up the liquid cooler as an intake just so that the CPU is getting like cool outside air, but that didn't work here. Hot air was stagnating somehow, so.
Yeah, like blowing right into the graphics card.
Right. So we took, just took it, played around with it, and found that this was the best configuration. So.
And so in terms of performance, so it was actually cooler than the Elite 110 overall.
Let me pull up the graphs here. Yes. In some ways, with some of the
Right.
components, it was cooler. Like the Elite 110 had higher graphics card temperatures. Because the CPU cooler was pulling hot air out of the case, the Air 240 got a little hotter, but I don't think that's necessarily a generalizable result because of the way we did it. If you had the stock fans in place, it would probably work just as well, if not better.
Right.
So, but with the Elite 110, because it's such a small case and because everything is sandwiched into that tiny space, like especially the storage gets a lot hotter because it's at the very top of the case. There's the only fans in the Elite 110 are the ones on your CPU cooler and the power supply. So,
So you pretty much have to have the hot air from your liquid cooler blowing onto the other components.
Yeah, I when I tested the Elite 110, I think I played around with setting it up as an intake and it up as an exhaust. I don't think it made that much of a difference.
Hmm.
Like it was only a degree or two. I mean, so it's not a huge deal, I think, because the power supply fan is doing a little bit of work for exhaust too.
Right.
But I mean, as far as like, one thing I should mention is we do have fan splitters on order, and we will be retesting this case because I think it can
Right.
do better, and we really want to give it a fair shot. But
Mhm. But it
overall,
still did well, and it like noise levels were nice and low, and temperatures were okay. And when it did get hotter, it didn't like I don't think it got that much hotter. Like
correct.
maybe like a 3-4 degree difference for the CPU, and
Yeah, it
like
was 53 versus 57 degrees under
yeah,
load.
which is not bad.
Right.
So like overall so far, even when, like before you retest it, is this a case you'd recommend for like a mini ITX micro ATX build?
I mean, yes, I would say I would reservedly recommend it. Someone asked me this in the comments on the article. It's like, you seem to like the case. Why didn't you recommend it? Well, we don't know yet. Like how well the stock fans perform, like how noisy they are. But like, I think it's a solid chassis, and I would, if it does retest well, I said, we might revisit the verdict. Um, but so yes, I would give it a qualified recommendation at this point.
Right. But yeah, I mean the stock fans are like the nice sort of Corsair, like I don't know what they're called. I think they have
Well,
a like a special series name for them, but the white,
yeah,
the
I
ones with
think
the white
these are the
blades.
AF120L.
Yeah, that's
Is
right.
what they're called, and that's like the stock fan that Corsair puts in its cases. It's not like you can't buy them, I don't
Mhm.
think, separately from the cases. They might
I
be.
thought you could. Let's see.
Yeah, I
AF120L.
don't know.
We
But,
don't have to. I know you can Google
we don't
everything,
have
but we don't have to find out right now.
So,
It's okay.
Right, right.
Right. So my personal case is a Corsair Obsidian 450D, which has like the 140 millimeter version of these fans, and I like them a lot. I like that case a lot. So again, I think it has the potential to be, it's easily a recommended case.
Sure.
But until we have data, I just don't want to like lead anybody astray.
All right.
So. But yeah, as far as the small form factor cases I've tested, it's definitely the easiest to build in. Like the fact that it can take micro ATX boards is a big plus. And if it's as quiet as it was in my testing with the stock fans, it's definitely, I think, the best small form factor case I've tested.
Cool.
To wrap it up.
Well, Jeff, thanks for joining us. Thanks for waiting as we had kind of people stacked up to join us tonight. I appreciate you taking time.
Anytime.
And we'll have to get back to this one, and I think maybe we get another case or two headed your way soon so that you can look at some more.
Yay, more
Look
work.
forward to it.
All right. Well,
So.
thanks very much. We'll catch you later.
Yep. Talk to you later.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Excellent.
All right.
So what's next?
We have
Mobile
let's talk about
topics.
Cyril, let's talk about your mobile guide, the R mobile
Woohoo.
staff picks, because we're the staff and we picked them. And this is actually, it's a perfect time for us to be doing what we just did with this, because there are tons of new mobile devices and laptops and et cetera out. And so the timing was perfect, and we have a new collection of picks for, what did you do? We did laptops. What did you do? Laptops, convertible laptops, all sorts of things. Let's
Convertibles, laptops, phablets, and tablets. So everything
excellent.
except the systems we didn't put in.
All right. Well, let's sort of go through them bit by bit here and look at some of the recs and maybe those of you who contributed specific recommendations can defend your choices. So the first set is convertible laptops. So this is stuff that can be a tablet or a laptop. Is that what a convertible laptop is?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, so there's some people call them 2-in-1s. The Surface Pro 3 is not really technically a convertible because it doesn't have like a hinge. the touch cover doesn't have a hinge. It sort of latches on magnetically, but it's like it's supposed to be used as sort of ersatz laptop, so it counts as a convertible.
Yeah, I think so. And so our picks are, let's see, Dell Venue 11 Pro 7000, which is about $700.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like we got progress in this category. This is a 10.8-inch 1920 by 1080 display, presumably IPS. And this is a Core M chip. That's the new thing in this category, right? Is Intel's Core M stuff is shipping.
Yeah, it's Broadwell, 14 nanometers, 4.5 watts. Pretty much, Intel's like most efficient mobile chip so far, I think.
And it says it weighs 1.6 pounds. There's a dock? Is that with the dock for the keyboard, or?
That is almost certainly without the dock, because if you look at the Surface Pro is 1.76 pounds without the touch cover. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's without the keyboard. That's actually, it's not really like Dell sells it like as an accessory, like when you're ordering, like on page 2 of the the order
form
procedure,
yeah
form. So it's it's not really like a bundle, so to speak, but so yeah, all the specs listed are for the tablet component on its own.
Gotcha. Okay, so Jeff, is it time for us to replace our 5-year-old laptops? Is this the one right here?
I don't know, because it's $700 without the keyboard, which is like $220 on top of that.
Yeah.
So
And
it's kind of,
we're on the record as being cheap.
well, it's not a question of it's if I'm going to spend that much, I want it to be really good. I want to have everything.
Right.
I'm not crazy about 16 by 9. I'd rather have 16 by 10. I mean, what I really want is a Surface Pro 3 with a proper keyboard dock that actually sort of makes it work like a laptop.
Which doesn't exist.
Which doesn't exist, but I'm leaning towards the Helix 2, which, if you add in the cost of the keyboard for the Dell, they're actually kind of comparably priced.
And this is
And Helix 2 has an active stylus, which is something like I want to get in a one device that does everything. So the fact that it has a stylus that comes with the system along with the keyboard dock, that's actually sort of running ahead of the Venue for me.
And this is another rec, which is a Lenovo ThinkPad Helix 2. And it looks like this is 11.6 inches corner-to-corner display, 1080p, Core M Broadwell, and a nice set of things. So that's got a funky looking dock too.
Yeah, no, like the thing with the Helix 2 is that it looks like it's a lot more expensive, but I think it's actually a better deal because it comes with the dock for like $979. So the Venue 11 Pro would be like $920 with the dock, and it's got 64 gigs of storage, and the Helix 2 has 128. So it's I mean, the Helix 2 is a little bit thicker. Oh no, it's actually thinner, but it's a little bit heavier. So that's the only downside. Like the tablet component is a little bit heavier, but otherwise, I think it's a better deal.
And it
battery.
has a nub in.
And it has a nub. Yeah, it has the track point. I used to love the track point. I had a ThinkPad T41 for years and years, and it's when you don't want to use a touchpad, it's it's actually better than a touchpad in a lot of respects.
It's still a thing though. I mean, touchpads have gotten a lot better, right?
Yeah.
No, but there's something about just being able to not move your fingers from the keyboard and still being able to move the cursor around. Like I like it particularly on planes. I used to love using it because there's not really any room to sort of move your arms back and forth.
Right.
So I've always found, especially when writing, to be
it's a writer thing.
No, and plus it's actually way more precise. Like you can do these really like very fine-grained movements, whereas with a touchpad, if you're trying to use Photoshop with a touchpad, it's a little tricky.
So you use a nubbin for Photoshop?
I did when I had the ThinkPad.
Wow.
ThinkPad in
that
years.
just sounds
That is-
like torture.
That is hardcore. I'm impressed. I didn't really like the nubbin thing all that much, so I'm surprised.
I don't like the word nubbin.
All right, let's call it the nipple.
I was trying to avoid.
That's not
There
any
are
better.
other words that are worse that we could use. I was trying to avoid those by using nubbin. So I don't know what to tell you, Jordan. Now, our other pick is the Surface Pro 3, Jordan. Probably just because you said so on the podcast before last, right?
I mean,
So-
I have a strong influence on these guys, so
There you
it's
go.
entirely possible.
It's a great product. It does get a little pricey if you want the right config, but it's great. So okay, let's move on though to Ultrabooks, because honestly, I don't care whether or not the top comes off my laptop. And Windows 8's tablet experience makes me enjoy my Android devices. So we got some Ultrabooks and regular laptops. And Jeff, here's the first one. Is this? It's the Neo Netbook, which sounds ominous. Actually, is a term. I think, Cyril, is that your fault that we called it a Neo Netbook?
That's what it is, though. I mean, it's basically all right. So if you want to get technical, it's basically a Chromebook that runs Windows, but it's still, Chromebooks are basically netbooks, and it's 11.6 inches. It's got an Atom CPU, sort of anemic
Nothing says
storage.
netbook more than E.
Yeah, and it's got the
true.
E brand, and it's got really good battery life, which was one of the main selling points of netbooks when they were a thing. You could get like 10 plus hours at the time, which was like, 2008, 2009, that was insane. And this one has 12 hours of battery life.
So Jeff, if your laptop dies, this is the one that you buy until the perfect laptop comes along, right, to tide you over, because it's basically like our laptop
same
again,
thing.
right? Yeah, but for $200 instead of $600 or whatever that we paid 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's not
No,
bad.
I like it. I think it's because I always liked having that cheap Windows computer that was just kind of fast enough for everything and had a real operating system. You could run real applications on it. The 32 gigs of storage is not great. I don't know how much of that you actually have access to, but it's got a micro SD slot so you can add storage cheaply. I think it's a nice little system. It's not something I'd probably want to use personally, but I can see recommending it for someone who is just looking for a cheap portable computer with really good battery life.
Yeah. And we don't have to go through all the other Ultrabooks, but there's a Samsung that looks nice, and they've been a good presence in that category, and this is sort of their latest. And it's a Haswell, not a Core M. I guess we haven't really Core M isn't out in that segment yet. That's like
Core M is not an Ultrabook CPU. There's going to be Broadwell U. They're going to have a whole
Right.
special lineup for Ultrabooks. Core M is pretty much just for very thin and light convertibles, really,
right.
and tablets, I guess.
So the Broadwell chip will make it into the Core i3, i5 instead of the Core M lineup. But that's probably, we'll see those at CES probably.
Yeah.
Preparations are being made now. So, and then the other rec is a 13-inch MacBook Pro Retina, which is, if you're willing to pony up for it, a very nice system. And if you want a Mac. I know, Jeff, that you're dying to get a Mac as soon as you can.
Well, that's the thing, you can put
hardware
Windows
is
on
good.
it.
Yeah, exactly. The hardware, the good keyboards, good screens, and big touchpads. So they do make good hardware. I'm not interested in the religion part of it.
I think that's optional, right?
Hey, you know what? Not cool. It's not cool anymore. It's not funny. It's not cool.
Oh no.
We got right into it. Okay, let's move on to tablets, because we're not going to disagree so much about these, are we? So the first one is a $99 Windows tablet.
That's right. Yeah, I was surprised too when they announced that and when it actually came out and actually cost that much. So it's the HP Stream 7. Has an Atom, like a quad-core Atom Bay Trail CPU. It has a 7-inch 1280 by 800 display. It has 8 hours of battery life, amazingly. They cut corners on the RAM and the storage fronts, so it's got 1 gig of RAM, which is kind of not a lot, and it's got 32 gigs of storage, although you can expand it with a micro SD card. So it's not Windows 8 as a tablet OS is not that great, and running Windows 8 on 1 gig of RAM is not that great either. But then again, it's $100, and if you need a second tablet, or like a tablet for your kid, or just something to stick in the garage or in the car or something, yeah, it's $100. And it actually runs the full version of Windows, and it has a reasonably fast CPU, so you can do a lot of interesting stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, I followed your logic right through to, but it's $99, right? Because that's why
But
why
it was
this thing is here.
99 cents.
It's yeah, cheap is good, but the next step up is you got to include the Nexus 7 2013, which is still a very significant computing device in my household and just in my everyday usage patterns. I like it. In fact, Jeff, I'm going to give you some controversy. I got a Shield tablet as well, which is our next step up. And for everyday use, I prefer the Nexus 7 to the Shield tablet. Not for gaming, and not for stuff that requires a lot of speed, but just like looking at the web and just checking my fantasy football scores or whatever I'm doing when I'm just sitting on the couch or something. Nexus 7 is still my go-to. It's just really well done.
Yeah, it was one of the, well, I guess, yeah, you told me it doesn't have Lollipop as an over-the-air update yet, but it's still, it's one of the first tablets in line to get that. Whereas, if you get like a Galaxy or whatever Samsung calls its tablets, you have to wait for a while to get, the latest Android release.
Yeah, if you get it, and then if you do, it's not going to look like Android. It's going to be TouchWiz. So, yeah, that's not good. That's why our other rec is the Shield tablet, which NVIDIA, to their credit, actually got the Lollipop update for that out before the Nexus 7 got its Lollipop update, which is pretty impressive. And honestly, like, NVIDIA knows what they're doing here, because that's a huge priority for enthusiasts who want to buy something to get the latest Android update. And the Shield tablet starts at $300, and it's an 8-inch tablet. It's a little bigger than the Nexus, and it has one of the fastest SoCs for a tablet in it. Not quite as fast as the two other high-end chips, which is the other version of Tegra K1 with the Denver CPU, and then the iPad Air 2 A8X from Apple, but it's close, and it's a lot of tablet for $300.
Mm-hmm. And it lets you stream PC games, which is a big thing.
Right, with the controllers and all that. And Jeff, Lollipop is pretty quick on this. I got to say, I'm a little worried about the Nexus 7 because of all the animations in Lollipop and just the change, that it might be a little slow. But the Shield tablet just knocks it out of the park, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it screams. I mean, it was fast before, and I don't know if some of the animations actually seem to be a little bit shorter in Lollipop, so it sort of seems like things are happening maybe a little bit quicker as well.
Yeah.
But for me, the Shield tablet, it's almost like the attitude behind the tablet that I'm most impressed with. The fact that they kept the stock Android installed, but they added just some little tweaking things that you can enable or disable if you want, but actually do useful things, unlike a lot of kind of the shovelware that you find on, or the sort of add-ons that you find on Android installs. It's got a micro SD slot, which you surprisingly don't see on a lot of premium tablets. The Nexus 7 doesn't have it. Like the $500 iPads don't have it. Just the ability to take the base model and add, 128 gigs on a micro SD card for about $120 is great. And then they've actually got a 4G version too that's completely unlocked, has 32 gigs of storage for $399, which I think is actually, if you're looking for a sort of a tablet with cellular built in, that's actually, I would say, sort of arguably an even better deal if you look at some of the alternatives on the market.
Yeah. And then our top most expensive is the iPad Air 2, which
you insisted on having in there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I love the fact that it's super thin, super light, all screen, gorgeous display, and they put in a triple core processor with a ton of graphics horsepower, and they gave us a 2 gigabyte RAM iOS device, which I really wish all their other devices were headed that direction. But this is
Can I actually ask? 'Cause a while back, I said I was going to get an Apple iPad Air 2, and I have yet to do that. I just sort of deferred the cost for now. I'm now torn because one of the things I really want to do with said tablet is I want to read books. It's one of the big use cases I have, but I've been sort of, even though I know that the The Mini would be better for sort of reading on the subway and sort of taking around as an e-reader and also other types of media consumption. I just am so attracted to the processing ability of the Air 2 and also just the other functionality with a lot of good applications and different things that would be, functional.
I don't think there's a huge difference in terms of internal specs. I think there's just like the Mini has a worse camera, I think.
The
Yeah,
Mini,
but
the
doesn't it
Mini's
also have
a
the
lot
A7X?
slower. Yeah, the Mini's a
Yeah.
lot slower. Yeah,
Does it?
yeah,
Yeah, it's not the new processor. That's my holdup.
yeah.
Huh.
No, it is. It's a lot slower. And so the question, Jordan, is the Air good to read books on?
Well,
Or-
just that, am I going to regret not having the smaller form factor?
oh, I don't know. What are you doing phone wise? You gonna get a phablet? You gonna
No,
get
I
it?
have just my iPhone 4, my 5S, and I'll get the 6 at some point.
Okay.
Or whatever the next version of the 6 is.
I mean, I would say if you're looking at the 6 Plus, that would be your e-reader, right there.
Right,
That's a nice
right.
size screen for that. I've read a lot of books on my Nexus 7, and I really like that size for reading. But a little bit smaller is not a problem. Larger, and you start to get into the annoying. My arm hurts, and I'm holding this up, laying in bed reading, or whatever, wherever you're sitting reading. So I don't know. I don't own an Air 2, so I haven't spent a lot of time doing that to figure out if it's comfortable. But look at the specs here. The weight on it is almost 1 pound, and
Right.
the Nexus 7 is 0.64 pounds. For extended reading sessions, I think that's going to make a difference. Even though I like the fact that the Air 2 is really light, I don't know that it's a good e-reader compared to a smaller device. That's my view. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna sound like a Luddite, but
He
I-
wants a
I've
Kindle. Don't
No,
flip
I've stopped
the,
reading books on screens. I don't use my
Oh,
Kindle because
you-
the screen is too small and the typesetting is ugly, and reading on a glowing screen hurts my eyes. Like I don't like it. So I've started reading books on paper again, which is surprisingly comfortable for the most part, unless you're reading like a 1,000-page fantasy novel or whatever. But it's
That's what I'm doing every.
yeah. Well, okay then. Then it's worth the compromise.
Well,
But
it's an interesting
otherwise-
progression because I've identified that, I think that just reading is something I want to do more of. And also because chicks dig it. And so I have progressed from years and years of listening to audiobooks, which I find actually make it harder to process what I'm hearing because it turns into sort of background noise. And then, of course, I bought a lot of physical books, but I live in a small apartment. I don't have room to store books. I find myself just buying something that sits around. I don't read it, and then it's just taking up space. So I need to use something digital, and I'm not clear at this point what I need to buy to make
I mean,
that happen.
Yeah, I would sympathize, but my apartment is like 500 square feet, so
Yeah, well, you clearly, care less, and that's fine.
all right.
I'm teasing, but the point is that I don't have a lot of space, and so I have a lot of books right now. I'm staring at a bookshelf full of books, and I don't have more room to keep storing books.
Jordan, I read books on my iPhone 5 and liked it. I think a 6 would be an okay e-reader, and the 6 Plus is spectacular that way. So that's a consideration.
I don't, for some reason, my phone is not an attractive reading platform for me, and I can't tell you why. I just feel like it's just too small. Like I want something that's just like, so I'm thinking either Mini or AirPad or Air 2.
There's always that. No, you don't want to buy that $99 Windows tablet as an e-reader. What's the resolution on that display? Like 320 by 200. but yeah, there is always the cheap stuff, relatively cheap stuff like the Nexus 7 is spectacular that way.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an e-reader, let's talk about phablets because we actually recommended some. We haven't really done this in the mobile staff picks before, but Cyril, we went ahead and did it. And we got 3 of them here, and I feel like it's my fault that the 1+1 is in there. I think I dragged that into the conversation.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the HP Stream 7 of the phablet category. It's just so cheap, and for the most part, it seems to work, right?
Yeah, no, it is, and it's not a Nexus device, but it has a Cyanogen mod, which is kind of the next best thing. It's actually way more customizable than regular Android, and hopefully we'll get quick updates Although I think the lollipop thing is still a ways out. But it's billed as a premium smartphone killer, and it is a 5.5-inch 1080p display, and a nice Qualcomm Snapdragon processor and all that stuff. It's not a premium phablet in that the quality of the display in terms of total contrast ratio and things like that just doesn't keep up with the other two Rex that we have here, and the camera is not anything to write home about. But for the price.
Yeah, it's like less than half the price.
Less than half, yeah.
Yeah, you get two and just like you'd be happy. I don't know. So I would probably not get the 16 gig one. I get the 349 is the price for the 64 gig, which is a great deal. But yeah, it seems good.
That's what's insane. Like the $800 iPhone 6 Plus has Gesundheit. The $800 iPhone 6 Plus has 16 gigs of storage, which is I don't know how they get away with that.
That's
Religion.
That's not that config is not for you and me. I don't know what to say, right? I don't feel like that's not even really the starting price. The starting price is the 64 gig one. Because it shouldn't be in the conversation. That said, the other two Rex, the Note 4 and the iPhone 6 Plus, are both amazing. If you haven't seen the OLED display on the Note 4, it will make you almost be ready to excuse TouchWiz.
Ooh.
It's that good. Also, like the whole pentile or weird like subpixel configuration with the green giving you more pixels and other colors less, and like you see that display and you're over worrying about that stuff because they get to the density and the quality level where it's just amazing.
Yeah,
So,
it's 515 pixels per inch.
yeah, I don't know about that because of the subpixel stuff,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. Like look at it and it's sharper than, in fact, the best display period I think I'd ever seen is probably the iPhone 6 Plus, and I believed that for like 3 weeks, and then I saw a Note 4. It's amazing. They're both great. They're display wise they're trade-offs with both, but geez, I mean it's really nice. So those are obvious picks in this category right now. They're both relatively new products that are awesome and kind of pricey. But if you want to pay as much as you would for a laptop, you're going to get a really, really nice setup. So those are our picks there. Do we have other picks, or that's... Oh, it's the...
We have a Chromebook section.
Don't buy a
Just
Chromebook section
don't buy
that Cyril included. I would like not even put that in, but you had to make sure that we warn people that... Yeah.
No, I mean we had that in last time in the last guide, and we said, okay, if you really have to get a Chromebook, here's this system that you kind of maybe could get, but now I mean you've got the ebook X205, which is $200, runs Windows and is pretty decent as far as I can tell, and it has pretty good reviews on Amazon. So I just don't see any reason why you would buy a Chromebook unless you actually need something that's very limited. If you want to give it to like a kid or something, or just I don't know.
Right,
I'm sure there's a good reason.
Right, an email checker for grandma. But honestly, tablets are great for that. Like that's like we got my mom an iPad, and she quit having problems. Whereas her netbook, like if the window demaximized, I had to drive over there and fix it. So, I totally get it. And I guess, you said you were talking about what's on the horizon. Really, we're in a good spot right now. I mean, all the stuff is kind of out ahead of the holiday season, and there's a new cycle on a lot of the major product lineups, and the Nexus stuff is out. The only thing that we didn't talk about, or we didn't recommend that is worth talking about, I guess, is the Nexus 6, which is just on the cusp of being out everywhere. And
well, we did mention it, I think.
We didn't talk about it here, I mean, but
right.
It looks like a significant product in the phablet space as well. The initial reviews are mostly good. Some concerns about battery life and things like that, but those are a little bit mixed. So
it's just a little pricier than the Nexus 5, but then again, 6-inch.
Yeah, I
Pretty
don't.
large.
I don't know.
It's a lot pricier than the Nexus 5. It's like double the price.
Yeah, but the other phablets that we're looking at are expensive too. I guess it makes sense for that space. But anyway, no, but it's a good time. The only thing that I guess we'd say other than that on the horizon is, like we said, the Broadwell U stuff that is coming probably after the first of the year, and that's like
and
new
what
Ultrabooks.
Jeff pointed out, which is better. I mean, potentially better Core M systems. I mean, the current selection is kind of limited. I'm sure we're going to see more options with that sort of hardware next year.
Right. Now that makes sense. Okay, let's shift a little bit if we can, Jordan.
To the end?
We
Accelerate?
have been
Going on
doing
2.5
this
hours here.
podcasting thing for a long time. I'm not really clear on what happened entirely, but no, it's been good. Do we want to talk about anything else on our agenda, or are we ready to wrap this thing up, Jordan?
I'm ready to wrap up, but it's up to you guys.
Is anybody going to have their feelings hurt if they don't get to talk about their latest reviews? No, this is silence. Nobody's saying anything.
Which I love, because you guys are all at least, well, Scott less, but you guys are 3 hours behind, which time. And I'm like, I'm tired because it's midnight. It's 9 p.m. your time, but still.
Well, we get up at U.S. Central.
It's
hours,
late. Yeah, it's
roughly.
late for everybody.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point. All right. Well, let's bring this mother home. Or puppy home, or, whatever the deal is.
Whatever it is, yeah.
That wraps it up for this episode of the podcast. Very quickly, roundtable before we go. Mr. Gager, what do you have coming up for us on the next few episodes of the website? Weeks of the website, not episodes. Go ahead.
Next couple of weeks, there's some new storage stuff coming up, and a quick look at NVIDIA's Grid gaming service.
Ooh, very cool. Cyril, how about you?
I don't know yet.
No. That's helpful and enlightening.
There might be a case, there might be a monitor, there might be both, there might be neither. I don't know. I don't know. Stop asking me. I don't know.
There will be a monitor, right? I mean, that's happening.
Yeah, I just haven't heard back
Scott,
yet.
I just downloaded Kingdom Crush.
Kingdom. Which one did you get? The first one or?
The first one, Kingdom Rush. Excuse me, not Crush. That's Candy Crush. That's a different story. In which case, if someone invited me to that, I'd have to murder them. And I understand you'll be doing Kingdom Rush Origins, which means that's what you're doing for the next few weeks.
That's pretty much it. There won't be anything else from me for a while, so I'm just gonna play that game. But no, actually, Jordan, I've been working on a huge project I'm not ready to talk about yet. But
I love those types.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be interesting, and I expect that by the next podcast we'll be talking about it, so it should be good.
Excellent. Well, thanks to those of you who watched in our chat. Thanks to Microcenter for sponsoring this episode. No, that's not true. That didn't happen. We will see you on the next episode. Until then, I'm Jordan Drake for the rest of the team at the Tech Report. For the Tech Report podcast at techreport.com. Follow us on Twitter, techreport.com. Go to our show notes at techreport.com and check out our Twitter handles there. techreport.com. I will see you on the next episode. I'm Jordan Drake saying so long.
All right.
We need a title for this thing. What just happened? Can we call it What Just Happened? No, we need an actual name. Hey, thanks to everybody in the stream, by the way. Thanks for joining us live.
How about
it's amazing.
It's the Tech Report podcast, episode 166. What Jordan actually looks like.
But they won't be able to tell from the audio.
That's a problem.
Let's see.
Ooh, Jeff, right there. Hold that. Oh no, I'm watching the delay. You were doing some stretching. You had some good bicep movements there.
It's just for you, Jordan.
That's very kind of you. Bro, do you even lift? I just like watching Scott think up the episode title. It's really relaxing.
But I get nothing tonight. This is bad.
Tech Report Podcast, episode 166. Jeff's torture hour times, I guess, 2.5.
Jeff, you didn't get to say anything. Let's just open it back up and start again, and we'll do a segment for you on the.
I mean, we haven't talked about the SSD.
Yeah, I mean, we could do an SSD review. Those always
Yeah.
go over so well in audio.
Let's do it.
This bar, as you can see, is longer than that bar, but shorter
But not
than
really
this bar.
that much longer. They're actually all kind of the same length.
And you know, at the end of the day, you're not going to perceive that difference. But you know, it's all about cost per gigabyte.
I made all of these graphs. You have to look at them.
But just the scatter plot, pretty much, we're down here.
Oh, but there's no price, so no scatter plot.
Let's see, so the TR podcast 166, Carrizo, FreeSync,
Wait,
and
talked about
we
Carrizo.
ain't even
and the
talked about
Code
that stuff.
keyboard. I'm just giving you. You guys are. It was all in the list.
I don't even remember. It's been so long.
It was all in the list, right? Let's see.
Oh God.
I'm gonna let you guys figure out the title.
All right.
Bye.
Farewell, Twitch. Farewell, Internet.
See you, Jeff.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Jordan, it looks like you're snuggling up to the microphone. Actually, it's gonna look like that during the whole session.
Well, it is kind of next to my face.
Yeah, just kind of smooching it.
How about reader questions, Asus answers, and our mobile Rex?
That sounds good to
Like-
me.
Now the cameras are all jacked up. I guess it doesn't matter.
All right.
It's very postmodern.
Here we go. Let me excuse me. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 166. Reader questions, Asus answers, and our mobile Rex. Let me try it one more time. This is I've never done it like this before. This is
Isn't
really
it more
intense.
Asus than Asus? What?
Isn't it like Dr. Seuss with an in front of it? Asus?
Yeah.
That's how I've always understood. All right, one more time. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 166. Reader questions, Asus answers, and our mobile Rex.
What's so funny, Cyril?
just Jordan's posture and the the disparity between his posture and the and the you know, the tone of his voice, which is very very formal.
This summer,
Sorry,
one
it's-
man will go
Been
all
a
the
long
way.
day.
It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 166. Actually, this is the new one I've been doing. Hold on a second. Oh. There we go. The new one I've been doing is it's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 166.
Casey
It's the-
Kasem.
It's sort of Casey Kasem meets the voiceover guy, and they do this a lot for comedies, where they'll be like, you know,
In a
Jim
world.
Carrey, Kurt Russell. Actually, wait, what was it? Here we go. It's the Tech Report Podcast, episode 166. Reader questions, Asus answers, and our mobile Rex. There. All right, I gotta go to bed.
Are we done? Did we
We're
Did
done.
we get it? We got a good title.
Done.
Okay.
So long, farewell, Avitas, and good night.
Excellent. Well, we'll shut down the stream. Thanks to everybody who joined us.